Noah's always loved me gently. The kind of love that wraps around you like a worn sweater. Safe, warm, familiar. He texts me good morning every day, even when we sleep in the same bed. He listens to my rants about literature, even though he's more into video games and food trucks than poetry. I've always thought love should feel like that, consistent, like a steady hum in the background. But lately, I've felt like I'm standing behind a glass wall, watching my own life. My words feel dull. My poems don't come alive anymore. Noah kisses me and I smile, but something inside me doesn't move. Then there's Mr. Callahan. It started with a poetry class. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2:15 sharp. He walked in like he owned every word in the room. Clean button-ups, sleeves rolled to the elbows, always carrying a leather notebook like it held entire galaxies. The first time he read one of my assignments aloud, my chest tightened. "This," he said, holding up my poem, "is not just writing. This is feeling distilled. Whoever Liam is, he's got something dangerous in him." The class laughed. I laughed too, but something in the way he said my name made me sit up straighter. Dangerous. I wasn't sure if I liked the way it tasted or loved it. Over the next few weeks, I started arriving early. Sometimes I'd catch him making tea, adjusting his glasses. He always looked up, always noticed. "Ready to impress me again, Liam?" he'd ask, and I'd chuckle, heart kicking a little harder in my chest. One day after class, he asked me to stay behind. Said he wanted to talk about my latest poem. He closed the door, sat on the edge of his desk, read my words back to me. "You write like someone who's lived 2 lifetimes," he said quietly. "Most students try too hard to be clever, but you're honest." I should have just said thank you. Instead, I said, maybe I'm just tired pretending. His eyes held mine for a beat too long. Then he nodded. Me too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid next to Noah, his arm draped across my chest. He mumbled something in his sleep, something about tacos, and I wanted to laugh. But I didn't. I just stared at the ceiling, my pulse still racing from earlier. It kept happening. Little moments, after-class chats, inside jokes, a brush of his hand as he passed me a graded essay. I began dressing with more intention on Tuesdays and Thursdays, fixing my hair, wearing that cologne Noah gave me last Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on me. I told myself it was just admiration, a mentor student thing. But every time Mr. Callahan looked at me, really looked, I felt like he was peeling away layers I didn't know I had. Noah noticed I was distant. He asked if something was wrong. I told him I was just stressed about finals. He made me pancakes and played our favorite playlist. I smiled, but it felt like a performance. Then, 2 weeks before the semester ended, Mr. Callahan emailed me. Subject: Creative Fellowship Opportunity. Message: Liam, there's a secluded writing cabin upstate. I take one student every spring to help prep their fellowship portfolio. I'd like it to be you. Quiet, peaceful, just us and the work. Interested? I read it 4 times. I shouldn't go, I thought, but I clicked reply anyway. Yes, I'd be honored. When I told Noah about the trip, he beamed. That's amazing, babe. You deserve it. He didn't ask many questions. Trusted me like he always did. The night before I left, he helped me pack, folded my sweaters, slipped his hoodie into my bag. "So you don't forget me," he joked, laughing. I almost told him. The truth lingered on the tip of my tongue, heavy and burning. But I kissed him instead, told him I loved him, and when he whispered it back, I looked away. The next morning, I met Mr. Callahan at a parking lot near campus. He was already waiting, leaning against his car, wearing a dark coat and holding 2 coffees. "Ready?" he asked. His voice was calm, even, like we weren't about to cross an invisible line. I nodded. My heart thudded, so loud I was sure he could hear it. As we drove into the mountains, silence settled between us like snowfall. Soft but certain, he played jazz on low volume. I stared out the window, trying to rehearse reasons, excuses, justifications. But all I could think about was how his hand was resting on the gear shift and how close it was to mine. And somewhere deep in my chest, something opened, and something else began to break. The cabin sat at the end of the gravel road, wrapped in pine trees in a quiet that felt deeper than silence. No reception, no distractions, just the sound of wind moving through branches and the occasional crunch of our footsteps as we unpacked. Inside, it smelled like cedar and old books. One bed, one couch. A fireplace was stacked beside it. Mr. Callahan, James, as he finally told him to call him, tossed his duffel in the corner and looked at me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You sure you're okay with this?" he asked. I nodded. "I am." He poured 2 glasses of red wine that night, said it helped loosen creative muscles. I wasn't much of a drinker, but I didn't say no. We sat by the fireplace, the flames throwing gold and orange across his face, his voice low as he read me a Rilke passage from memory. This is the longing, the breaking open of the self to something wild. I felt that line like a bruise being touched. Later, I read him one of my newer poems, one I hadn't shown anyone, not even Noah. It was raw and messy, about feeling like a ghost in your own life. When I finished, I couldn't meet his eyes. "Liam," he said softly, "you keep writing like this, and the world won't forget your name." He placed a hand on my shoulder. Just a gesture. Nothing more. But it lingered, like heat that doesn't go away. The next morning, I woke to the sound of bacon sizzling. He was in the kitchen, barefoot, humming something old and jazzy. We ate on the porch in silence, steam rising from our mugs, eyes locked on the horizon. Everything felt stripped down to the bone. No masks, no lectures, just air and tension, and something growing between us we didn't dare name. In the afternoon, we worked at the table side by side. I was editing a piece. He was scribbling in his notebook. Once, our knees brushed. Neither of us moved away. By evening, it was raining, a steady, calming rhythm against the cabin roof. We stayed inside, drinking more wine, fire crackling again. He asked about Noah for the first time. "You two been together long?" "Almost 2 years." "You love him?" I hesitated too long. "Yes, I do." James looked at the fire. "You ever wonder what love is supposed to feel like?" I laughed once, nervous. "All the time." He leaned closer. "Because sometimes it feels like drowning, but other times it feels like breathing for first time." Silence folded between us. Heavy, warm. He reached out and brushed hair from my face. My breath caught. I didn't move. His fingers rested at my jaw. Then, slowly, he leaned in. The kiss wasn't rushed. It was slow, hesitant, as if asking for permission with every inch. I didn't stop him. I didn't stop myself. And then it deepened. The room spun quietly. Every sense heightened. The softness of his mouth, the scratch of his stubble, the weight of the moment crashing into me like a wave. When we broke apart, I didn't say anything. I just pulled him back to me. What happened next was not about lust. It was a collapse, a quiet surrender. Clothes on the wooden floor, skin on skin, breath on breath. I remember thinking how strange it was to feel so wanted and so ashamed at the same time. After, we laid in bed, limbs tangled. The fire had burned down, the room lit only by the dim bedside lamp. I stared at the ceiling, listening to our breathing slow. James whispered, "You don't have to explain anything. Not now." But I wasn't sure if he was speaking to me or to himself. The next morning I woke up alone. The space beside me was cold. I found him outside, standing in the drizzle, smoking. He didn't turn when I came out. Just said, "This place always makes things feel more real than they are." I nodded, but the words sank like stones. We drove back that afternoon. He didn't touch the jazz station, barely spoke, just gripped the steering wheel like he was holding on to something slipping away. I stared out the window, guilt pooling in my stomach. Every mile we got closer to home, the weight of what I'd done pressed harder on my chest. At a stoplight near campus, he finally said, "I don't regret it, but this doesn't go beyond that cabin. You understand?" I nodded. My voice barely came out. "Yeah, I understand." But something inside me shattered, because I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And when I saw Noah's contact name light up on my phone, I didn't answer. The key clicked into the lock, like it was louder than it should have been. I stepped into the apartment, suitcase in hand, pretending everything still looked the same. Noah was in the kitchen, slicing lemons, humming to some soft indie song. He turned when he saw me and smiled, wide, bright, effortless. "Hey, baby," he said, crossing the room to hug me. "I missed you." His arms wrapped around me, familiar and safe. But something inside me recoiled. I hugged him back, but my grip was shallow, empty. He pulled away and frowned. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired," I said, setting my bag down too carefully. The drive was long. He nodded, still smiling, and turned back to his lemons. "I figured we could do dinner tonight. Celebrate your writing trip." I forced a smile. "Sure, sounds good." That night, he talked about his week. Something about a co-worker quitting. A movie he watched twice because he thought I'd love it. His voice filled the room like it always had. But mine didn't join. I nodded, laughed once, weakly. Inside, everything was collapsing. When he went to the bathroom, I saw his phone buzzing with a message from a group chat. The world kept spinning for him. But for me, time had frozen the moment I left that cabin. Later, I stood on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Cold wind brushing my face. I kept replaying that night. James's lips, his voice, the way his body curved toward mine like we were pages of the same book. And how afterward, everything felt like paper burning from the edges inward. I thought I could carry it, that it could stay hidden in the woods, like a secret buried beneath pine needles. But guilt has a way of finding oxygen. It starts as a whisper, then becomes a scream. 2 days later, Noah found the poem. It was folded in my notebook, the one I thought I'd hidden well. He sat on the edge of the bed, reading it slowly. "Your skin is where I lost my name." His voice cracked when he read it aloud. When I came into the room, he looked up, eyes glassy and wide. "Liam, who is this about?" I didn't lie. He didn't yell. That's what hurt most. He just stared at me like I was someone he didn't know. "You said you were working," he whispered. "You said you loved me." "I do," I said too fast. "No," he said, standing now. "You don't do that to someone you love. You don't come back from something like this and pretend to hold me the same way." I couldn't breathe, couldn't find words to argue with, because he was right. "I didn't plan it," I muttered. "It just happened." His face twisted, not in rage, but in grief. "Do you even hear how cliché that sounds? You didn't plan it? Liam, I trusted you with my heart, and you gave it away like it meant nothing." He packed a bag that night. A few shirts, some books, the toothbrush we shared. He looked around once, like he was memorizing the way the apartment looked with me still in it. "I need space," he said. I nodded. I couldn't ask him to stay. Not after what I'd done. A week later, James resigned from the university. Quietly. No announcement. Just a vague email saying he was pursuing other paths. I saw him once on campus. He didn't stop walking. Just gave me a slight nod and disappeared into the parking lot. I never saw him again. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't tragic in the way books make it feel. It was empty, a sharp cut that left no poetry behind. The apartment was too quiet without Noah. I kept hearing him in the echo of the faucet, the soft thud of the door. His laugh stayed in the walls, and every night I sat at the table where we once shared wine, I felt the weight of what I'd lost. I wrote, not because it helped, but because it was all I had, page after page of guilt, longing, truth I should have spoken sooner. I wrote until my hand cramped and my eyes blurred. Months passed. Eventually, I read an open mic night. A new poem, one that didn't hide behind metaphor, one that bled. I kissed a lie and lost the truth. I said at the end. The room was silent. Afterward, no one clapped right away. Just a breath, deep and collective, then soft applause. But it didn't matter. It wasn't for them. It was for me. And maybe, just maybe, for Noah wherever he was now. Because not every love is meant to last. Some are meant to break us, so we can begin again.